ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and it is they're type of brain disorders that cause difficulty with things like attention and concentration. It also can cause problems with being very impulsive, having a hard time sitting still, which is that hyperactivity component. Being unable to stay on track with one particular thing. Sometimes I hear from parents, well, I don't know how my child could have ADHD because they can play video games for hours and hours and hours. So one of the things that I also talk about is that it's a disorder of attention and concentration, and it can actually be in either direction. So some kids who have ADHD can get hyper-focused and get completely entranced with things that they love. And video games is a great example because there's, video games today, there's so much going on inside that game, so it can hold their attention for a lot of reasons. There's constant change, which is one of the things that people with ADHD tend to like. There's a lot of challenge. There's both visual input and as well as the whole tactile input. So that's a reason why sometimes kids with ADHD can sit and do video games or get really entranced in an activity. Kids with hyperactivity that are sitting in school, there's some really interesting techniques that have been developed over the years. Some schools are using like the big bouncy balls that they use for exercise. Yeah. They'll have kids sit on that so they can kind of like hop around, and they actually are able to focus better because they have that physical activity going on. The most common things, we mentioned getting bored really easily with things, losing things a lot, not just, the average kid loses things from time to time, but it's a consistent pattern of forgetting homework, losing their jacket repeatedly, can't find their shoes or their backpack in the morning, usually disorganization, so they have trouble organizing maybe they've got their folders and their binders and their books and just have a real difficult time keeping things in order. They have trouble with irritability sometimes because they get edgy, anxious. They blurt out things in conversations. So those are a few of the more common things. The nice thing about catching it early and treating it early is that kids are more likely to be able to live to their full potential. And I talk about ADHD, it's not just a school-based disorder. It used to be thought, well, kids only need to be treated during their time that they're in school. And in fact, with the kind of symptoms that we've been talking about, if you think about a kid who's interrupting, is disruptive, is irritable, is going to have a lot of trouble in family, but also with peers. I've seen a lot of kids who can't do after-school activities or very limited after-school activities because they're so disruptive. So they're really it affects their whole being. When we think about the types of medications available, first there's a class of medications called stimulants, which includes Ritalin. It also includes methylphenidate is a generic, and then amphetamines is the other type of stimulant. There's several different formulations of that as well. We also have non-stimulant drugs that are available now. Some are used specifically for ADHD and have on-label uses for that, and then some are off-label uses that some are actually been used for many, many years as blood pressure medications, but in fact appear to be quite helpful for many of the symptoms of ADHD as well. Kids who are just being obstinate and struggling, it's usually intermittent, and it's usually only in one situation. Right. Maybe it's just at home and they do great at school, or vice versa. Right. And so that's sometimes it's just a quote behavior problem. As far as it not being real, there's so many studies out there that show that in fact it's real. I mean, we actually, not only just from a standpoint of you give them medication, they improve, they do better, their grades improve, etc., but there's actually some very excellent studies looking at brain function and how kids with ADHD actually have different functioning brains. We have lots of evidence to believe that this is a real disorder, that we have really a pretty good handle on what the problem is.